Let's get going. You guys ready?
I'm ready.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Daily Carry Podcast, episode 80 today, and we're excited to have a special guest on set with us today. This is George Brauchler, District Attorney here. Is that right? Did I say that right?
Just George, man.
Just George.
Just
We're
George.
just going to leave it at George. Excited to have a conversation with you today. Thank you for coming out, sir.
Are you kidding? Thanks for having me on this thing. This thing is blowing up. So to be a part of it it's a big honor. Thank you.
Very thankful, and I'm excited that you brought your squeeze ball on set with us this morning.
I told you guys this. I told you guys this before we started. At first, it was, hey, this thing, you use this to keep your arm engaged while you're recovering from. And if anyone's ever heard of something called the rotator cuff, it turns out when you tear it, it's bad. Who knew?
I've heard.
Yeah. And it has to be surgically healed in some circumstances. Mine was one of them. So at first it was, hey, keep your hand engaged, keep your arm engaged. But I leave it on there because it has become like a conversation piece. As you guys know, first thing Micah says when he shows up is, what's with the ball? And in some ways, it's like, and I'm not saying it's equivalent, it must be what pregnant women feel, because people come up all the time and just, they want to touch it, they want to squeeze it. And I'm like, go ahead, you have my consent. So I just wear it now because it just...
So you're saying men or people want to rub the baby? Is that what you're saying?
I
The
say
belly?
that people come up, you ask pregnant women, people will just come up, strangers, and be like, oh, and touch, and it's like, whoa.
What,
dude.
what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing?
But people want to
This-
touch your ball.
People want to squeeze my ball.
Yeah.
And it's the big red ball of courage. But more than that, it's now something that really means I have no strangers in my life, because people will just come up and, what's with the ball? Other people will guess, like, is it a bumper? Like, is it so that you don't bump it? And I'm like,
Is it a bumper?
no, it's just a ball. It's just a ball.
I'll be honest with you. I did. I said, can I squeeze the ball? That's the first
You
thing
did,
I thought.
and thank you for asking for consent.
right.
Although I've never thought of rubbing a woman's belly was pregnant. Let me get that out of the way. That must be a woman
Other-
thing.
I don't know about
Yes.
that.
That must be a
I
woman
don't-
thing. No, my wife, I did. I always
sure,
rub
sure.
that,
Yeah,
but I
yes,
never
of
thought of
course.
walking up to a stranger. Can I rub your belly?
Yeah, can I just get a little Buddha thing here? Or something?
That's
I don't know
great.
what's going on.
Man,
This
gonna
is-
have
we're
fun
off to a
today.
good start.
Yeah, we're going to have fun
Right.
today.
Wait till we hit the serious stuff.
Yeah, just wait, because this first article is definitely not serious that I saved. This first post that I saved on the Daily Scroll, we're going to jump straight into it. We scroll so that you don't have to. And this first scroll, listen to this. A surgeon's career ended because the patient suffered irreversible brain damage while they were dancing and filming videos for TikTok. Now listen, the brain damage and the patient that suffered, that's tragic, but this is stupid. Okay? Watch this video. Outrageous, inexplicable, unforgivable. Watch this. Look at this. This is a real thing. They're dancing and singing while they're in there. Look, she's holding a surgical instrument right there.
Well, everybody wants to be famous on TikTok, even surgeons,
Standing
right?
there over a patient.
Yeah.
Can you, dude? Literally, this is verified. Grok verified this. Okay, you know Grok's ultimately
Yeah,
truth
he's-
seeking, and Grok verifies this. Somebody says Grok says, well, it said it in Spanish. Es verdad, es tú, and Grok says yes, it's true. The real case of the plastic surgeon Wendell Buate. I don't know how to say that. Atlanta, USA, 2018. She recorded videos dancing and singing during cosmetic surgeries. One patient suffered a cardiac arrest and irreversible brain damage due to a lack of immediate attention.
Listen, there are cases like this, and they're the ones that are extreme like this, where there aren't just civil consequences or you lose your license to practice, but there are criminal aspects of this. In our office right now, we're prosecuting at least one doctor for things not just like this, but in the zip code of whatever you were goofing around doing during this. And many times it's an anesthesiologist. When you're not paying attention. And as you know, when you go under, it is a controlled death.
Yeah.
That's all it is a controlled death. And so this could be criminal. And I'm not sure what's going on in Atlanta, but if I'm the prosecutor down there, I look at this and say, what's available to us?
And I can say I didn't even think the singing was that good.
No,
It did not pull off my vibe with the TikTok.
But how do you get yourself into that mindset where you're like, hey, here's this person going under. I'm going to cut into them or do whatever. Let's make a video.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world do you tell the family?
That's the world we're in nowadays. Yeah, we're going to have fun today. I can see it already.
I just can't imagine that. I mean, exactly what you said. What makes you think this is the best time ever to take a video? This is definitely going to blow up. This is going to go viral. What? You're wearing your scrubs and you're singing whatever that song is. What was that? Jay-Z?
I
Was
don't
it?
know.
I don't know. and you just dancing with a scalpel or whatever's in your hand. It's like, what do you expect is going to happen?
But also from a marketing standpoint, if you're this cat's patient in the future,
Yeah.
aren't you like, maybe I'm going to go somewhere else? Like this doesn't need, if this is true, if this is verdad, then it doesn't make any sense because someone sees that and they go, that's my guy. I don't want you dancing while I'm under and you're cutting into me. Is there a different doctor that is boring?
Somebody else available? The only thing could be worse, I think, is somebody in like a mortuary embalming or doing something, doing a video, and the family like sees it on YouTube, and you're like, wait, that's Dave.
Yeah.
That's dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although at least in that case, it's just disrespect and disregard. If they, and I'm really stealing here from a guy named Dennis Miller, who was a stand-up comedian.
Funniest maybe ever.
Yeah, funny guy.
So smart.
The White Album. And at one point he says, easiest job in the world has to be coroner. He said, look, if everything goes wrong, maybe you get a pulse.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, honey, I gained one on the table today. So I feel like that thing with the mortuary, yes, it's disrespectful and disregard, but, you know, you can't cost the family really anything more than they've already lost. So but this is crazy.
True. Yeah.
Dennis Miller.
All right. Let's continue here. Let's continue on the scroll. Might get a little heavier, okay? I don't remember. I saved some of these throughout the week. Yep, this was a massacre taking place in Nigeria against Christians by Islamists on Palm Sunday. Bodies line the streets of their village. Where is the outrage? I'm not going to play the video. Well, I can play it in here. I'm going to bleep it out on our episode, but I can play it in here. You guys can see this, at least for us to be able to see for context. It is pretty gruesome and pretty tragic. Palm Sunday. This has been going on in Nigeria for some time now.
Yeah, it has.
I mean, you just see the bodies just there.
We have no idea how good we have it here.
Yeah.
And yet, people just screaming about how bad it is.
Yeah,
Like I just want to put people on a plane and just fly them over to places like that and like hang out for a week. Take all of your border screaming and go down to Juarez. Tell me how it works out.
Yeah, I mean, we just got fast. We got heavy fast. I mean, this is serious that this is happening, and people are here just a couple years ago closing churches down just because the government says, hey, there's a virus going on. You're not essential. But yet we got judges in California that are saying that strip clubs are protected and they're essential. We got grocery stores that are essential, hardware stores that are essential, but they can just say that church is not essential and pastors are closing their doors left and right. But then we've got people in Nigeria that are literally being killed, but they're not stopping from actually being about what they say they're about. They're not hesitating. They are continuing in their faith, regardless of the real consequences.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really telling of how comfortable, how cushy we have it here in America, that pastors would just close doors whenever we've got people that are literally getting killed for what they believe in other countries. And I don't know, man. I mean, I think there's been a huge pendulum shift. There's so much hatred toward Christians right now. This is a observation that I've noticed, and it's even right here in Castle Rock, which is relatively conservative, even in Crystal Valley. Anything that you put out there that's anything Christian, people, the comments, it's always, man, can't wait to see all the Christian hate. Can't wait to see what all these Christians say. Oh, not the Christians. And it's all this hate toward Christians. And I get it. There's a couple of bad eggs every once in a while here and there. But the way that the pendulum has swung way too far this way to the point where Christians are just blatantly under attack in this country, I don't think that we're honestly too far off from there being. I mean, look at it. This is happening regularly in Nigeria. But we also have several instances of shooters targeting Christians. We had the attack whenever they had the kids praying in that school.
Oh, in the school. Yeah.
Not too long ago.
Yeah.
So I think that evil is just really beginning to rear its ugly head all over the world, here included. But to your point, I do think that you are right that a lot of people don't realize we still do have religious freedoms in this country that we're able to use in a level that we are still protected a whole lot more than a lot of people in other countries.
What do you see at the DA's office with the stuff? coming in.
We don't get a lot of cases that involve churches in this way, which, what I look for is an opportunity to, if you'll forgive this term, flex on the bad guys who would, for instance, pull a Don Lemon, go into a church with the purpose of taking over the service, or things that we've seen at St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York in the past where they come and dump the Eucharist on the floor. I would like the opportunity to show that there is criminal law applicability on extreme circumstances involving that, but from the position of protecting those who are going to church. The things that you left out, the one thing you left out when you talked about, hey, what did we close down and then what did we keep open during the virus? Also, those marijuana dispensaries. And the common theme, for whatever it's worth, the common theme that I see in the things that were kept open is, look, if you are your own God, if you are the center of your universe, then all of those things have to stay open because you're serving you. But if it's something bigger than you, if it appeals to a different set of values or principles that recognize that there are things like good and evil, right and wrong, that became easy to shut down under the guise of, oh, well, we got to protect one another. And so, mercifully in Douglas County and Elbert and Lincoln that make up my jurisdiction, we don't see a lot of this. I also think this is probably the wrongest place to try to pull stuff like that. I have done over the years several trainings for firearms and safety for churches and stuff like that. And I'm not suggesting that would be the outcome. I'm just suggesting that there is a true investment in the idea of keeping these as safe spaces for faith. And I just think it would be such a big mistake tactically and from a legal standpoint to want to pull something off in one of our churches down here, regardless of denomination. I just don't think it would fly well.
Let's flip the script because I have a question that I think is very relevant to exactly what we're talking about right now, because maybe we're not seeing that kind of a case or seeing anything having to deal with that kind of violence against churches. But a couple years ago, there were mandates in the state for churches to close their doors, pastors to close the doors of their churches. You aware of anybody that was charged for not closing their doors, not closing their church doors, and continuing to have services in the state? Maybe not in your jurisdiction, but do you know of anything in the state?
I don't. And I think we would have heard about that. I think it would have been brought to the forefront, if not by, the lefty media, certainly by the social media that existed at the time that gives us some voice. But when this thing happened, I remember speaking to Sheriff Spurlock, who was sheriff at the time out here, and the chiefs of police throughout our different jurisdictions. And I had said, if you ever think you're going to get to the point of scratching a ticket based on you're not wearing a mask or you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, pretty please call me first. Call our office first to get some feedback. But the good news was Sheriff Spurlock was also of a mind that he's like, I'm not going around ticketing people for engaging in these normal behaviors because we have these COVID-era laws. And so to my knowledge, as long as I was district attorney up through January of 2021, not a single ticket anywhere was scratched for that in our jurisdiction.
Wow. Good. And that was, at that time frame, that would have been, so that'd have been Jack over here at Castle Rock, or was that Tony Lane?
Jack Cawley has been the chief out here for, going back a long time.
He's been here for a while, yeah.
Okay. Many, many years.
And King up in Parker,
I think sadly we're going to lose this guy to retirement at some point, and I just think he's done a good job.
He's done a great job, actually. We're very fortunate here with our law enforcement.
I agree.
Very, very fortunate. Sorry, Jared.
No, that's good. I love it. Good conversation. Let's continue this scroll here, though. I'm going to back out of there, and we're going to keep going. All right, here we go. We were just talking about this a little bit while we were next door getting some coffee, and figured I would save this and have a little bit of a discussion about it. See what your thoughts are on this. This is coming from source on X, and this is, here, I'll just read it. Charlie Kirk assassination case just exploded. Kill shot bullet does not match Tyler Robinson's rifle. Everyone said something felt off. They were right. A new court filing claims the ATF couldn't tie the fatal bullet to the rifle linked to Tyler Robinson. So, I'm very interested to hear what you think about this.
Well, one, this is news to me. I don't follow this case on a day-to-day basis, but I'd love to see the filing, because to say that ballistics didn't confirm a match is not the same thing as saying ballistics confirmed it was not a bullet from this rifle. Those are two entirely different things. Multiple contributors to DNA, not unusual when it comes to the handling of weapons. My guess is some of the other DNA on there could be from his family members or from his partner, or however we're describing that person. I just don't know. Or maybe even from people who at the scene picked it up. You just don't know. So neither of those things tell me right away, we have a huge problem. But I'd love to see the filing that spells that out. And I'd also like to see who revealed it in the filing. Sometimes what the defense will do is to put things in a public filing to create this narrative to try to start to sow the seeds of doubt in a future jury. I'll give you an example of how it showed up in the Aurora Theater case. I had met with the public defender's office. There had been gag orders too strong, but it had that function. There was an order by the court, hey, no one's going to talk to the media during the pendency of this case, which is more than you normally see. And met with the public defenders. I knew that I had never taken a death penalty case all the way through verdict before. I'd handled a capital case at the preliminary stages out at the 25th Infantry at Schofield Barracks. But this was kind of a matter of first impression for me, and I realized what my inadequacies were. So I invited every DA in the state of Colorado who'd ever tried a death penalty case to come and listen to the public defenders make their pitch. And so they came and made their pitch on why I should just let them plead guilty and get life without parole rather than seek death. There's a lot more to that story, but when I rejected that offer and said, we're going to go to trial, we'll just get there. On the way out of the building, after they tease you with information about there's mental health here and there's all this stuff, but they never show you their hand. And they don't show you your hand because they're trained to be so mistrusting of the man of prosecution that they feel like they've got to hold things back in case they have to go to trial. That's not how I operate. I'm like, you want me to make a decision on this case that's life without parole? Lay it all out. Let me see it. Let me kick the tires. I even said, if you give me the notebook that the shooter sent to his psychiatrist, if you let me have my own psychiatrist go into the jail and look under the hood and see what makes him tick, and if you give me every single mental health and medical record that exists on this guy, you have my attention. I'm open to having this conversation. And they said, we're not going to give you any of those things. And I said, well, then you make it easy for me, man, because now I got to make a different decision because I'm going to get that information. And so I decided to seek death. And then they put in a public filing the fact that they offered to plead guilty to life without parole. And, of course, who runs with it on the front page? It's the Denver Post, and it's all the social media, and it's all designed to do two things. One, to put public pressure on me to say, oh, my God, they offered to go to prison forever. Why wouldn't you just take that, Mr. Mean-Spirited Brauchler guy? And then the other thing it's meant to do is to plant this in the minds of the would-be jurors, that this thing is out there, that, hey, life without parole is a possibility. So when you talk about things that were in a filing, I want to see the filing. I want to know who filed it. I want to see the words that are described before I get spun up and say, we have a huge problem here. I'd love to see those things.
Makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. I'm glad you spoke into that. So that particular case, it was interesting that you said I recognized my inadequacies. I think that's a big statement of integrity right there, because there's a lot of people that would have seen that case, and I can't speak to the DAs, but I think a lot of people would have seen the notoriety in the case, the opportunities in the case, where that thing could have gone, the magnitude of that case, the amount of victims. I mean, just on and on and on and on. That was, I had many friends that were involved in that. Danny Oates, who was the chief of Aurora at the time. I mean, dude. Danny Oates and I played hockey against each other.
Oh, yeah, he's a big hockey player.
But, dude, in Michigan, 30 years ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he was I think he was the chief of police of Ann Arbor PD at the time.
He was.
And
you're right.
We used to play down in Washtenaw Avenue against each other. I didn't even know who the guy was, but I was a medic / firefighter getting ready to go in. Decided later I was going to become a cop. Come out here, however many years later, we go into the boards playing hockey. I knock the guy down. I look at him. I'm like, I know you. And, and then
small world.
Small world, but then the tragedy and the travesty of the massacre. But I've got so many buddies that were involved in that.
I don't want to hijack the conversation, but since you brought up one, Dan Oates was, sometimes you find the right person at the right time. Like Dan Oates wouldn't be the right chief for Aurora PD right now because of how things have changed. But at that moment, he was exactly where
He was
God
perfect.
and the community needed him to be to do this thing.
Couldn't agree
I mean,
more.
He was just the right guy. But when you bring up this inadequacy thing, I tell you that when you run for office, and when I ran for DA, I was the first DA elected from outside the office since before we landed on the moon. I'm the only DA to have ever served the 18th from Douglas County. They had all come from Arapahoe. So when I ran, and I was running for the nomination against 3 other people who were all older and less funny and less attractive and all that, but
Wait, are you talking about Topolnicki?
Topolnicki, who had been prosecuting since
yes.
I was 1.
Yes.
Dude's a legit prosecutor. I'd take nothing away
Yeah.
from him, but older, way taller.
And definitely not as attractive. I'll give you that. Yeah.
Good man, though. Good man. But I remember we never talked about the death penalty because in Colorado, we had it on the books, but there were only 3 people on death row, all from the same high school out of Aurora Central. And then on June 26th, I won the nomination. July 20th, less than a month later, dude walks into a movie theater at the corner of 225 and Alameda, tries to murder hundreds of people. And it changes the conversation in the campaign. And both the Democrat nominee and I were both great about saying, can't commit to the death penalty from outside the office, not seeing the case, not fair to the process. But I remember it changed my mind, not on the death penalty, but on this approach. Like, I remember thinking, oh man, this is real now, right? Like, there's one person on the planet Earth who can sign their name to a piece of paper and start the machinery of government against a person to take their life. Oh my God, that's a big deal. That is a huge, huge deal. And so when I got elected and I got briefed up on the case and we started the process of deciding whether to seek death, I mean, I did all the things that I could think of to do. Like, not just, and for everyone outside the office, it's easy. Oh, he murdered 12 people and he injured 70 others. Of course, it's a death penalty case. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, it's definitely a conversation for sure. But you start speaking to the victims, and we identified 112 victims of the deceased. You start having conversations with them about, this is what it means if we seek the death penalty, and what do you think is justice here? What do you want to seek? I had my stupid little legal pad with my little T-bar thing in there where it was like plus and minus, like who's in favor, who's opposed, as if, in my mind, that's what I'd hear. I'd hear, I'm in favor, and I'm opposed. No, there were answers like that, but man, there were answers that were just completely unexpected. Answers like, I think he should die for what he did to my child, and that's why I want you to plead him guilty as quickly as possible. And I said, whoa, I didn't do a good job of this. Can't get the death penalty on a plea of guilty. It's got to come from a jury. It just has to. And they go, oh, I know. But we think that other inmates are more likely to kill him than the system will, and more quickly. So we'd like you to get him into prison as quickly as possible. Well, I don't have a column for that on my sheet. And then other people who would say things like, and this resonated with me as a Catholic, these are people that said, look, as a matter of faith, we're opposed to the death penalty. And that doesn't change because this guy murdered our son. And man, that's a tough one. That really stuck with me. And then the hardest ones were when people would say, we trust you. We trust you to do the right thing. And I'm like, no, don't do that to me, man. Please just pick a side or something. Pick something and let me figure this out. And then I went and talked to our priest, our local priest, and that was an incredible conversation. I mean, I remember that vividly. 30 minutes after Mass, standing in the little vestibule area there as people left, and he listens to me, and he started off by saying, Catholic Church is opposed to the death penalty in just about every single circumstance. I said, okay, I get it. Can I just ask you this? I tell him all this stuff, and he said, George, you almost have me convinced. He said, but it would be the position of the church to not seek the death penalty because we want every person to have the maximum amount of time at salvation, the maximum amount of time at redemption, you know? And I said, okay, then question 2 is, if I seek death, is this a mark on my soul? Like, is this a thing I take with me? And he said, no, you are a functionary of government, and in that capacity, you would not be viewed as this thing. Now, the public defenders don't see it that way. They see me as an attempted murderer if I seek death. And then the last person I spoke to was my dad. He was the most Christ-like man I've ever met. And it's like any good dad. No dad tells you the answer. They just ask you questions at that place in your life where you get there and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I got it. And then I showed up on April Fool's Day 2013 and stood up and said, hey, it is my intention that justice in this case for this guy over here is death. And that started us off on that whole thing. But it was never this knee-jerk reaction. And everyone in the media is like, oh, seeking death to get the media, seeking death to elevate his political profile. I'm like, you have no idea. You have no idea what it takes to get to this decision. There's nothing instant about this decision. It still haunts me. It's just one of those things, one of those weird things.
I'm so glad that you're speaking into this. Is what I was hoping for when I looked at Jared and I said, hey, we got to get George Brauchler on here.
No, thank you.
And each of the times, and I think I've said it a handful of times in different episodes, because it's always been pertaining to something that I've wanted to ask you a question about.
Yeah.
Not just having the DA on. Having the DA on is great. I mean, we had Weekly sit right there at the thing, and we just beat up on him and had a great time in a fun way.
Yeah.
I love Darren to death.
Darren's a good dude.
Good dude. But I wanted your take on things. What you've given me is you gave me a little bit of a gut punch in a healthy way over there. You actually got me really on the integrity thing, and then the amount of the back end that you went through.
Oh yeah.
And I say that for this reason. So a buddy of mine, I'm gonna leave his last name out of it. I'm gonna call him Johnny. He's an EOD guy, Arapahoe County, 2.5 decades. He was responsible to go into that theater and overturn everybody looking for booby traps because the guy had trapped his apartment. So the logical assumption is what if he left something on somebody? When you sit down and you talk to him, the stories within the stories, much like what you just shared.
Yeah.
I didn't just go out in a knee-jerk reaction. Well, he didn't just go in there and do his job.
Yep.
He went in there and sat down with the families and explained, here's what's going on. Here's what I got to go do. This is going to be, because people were wanting to get the bodies, the victims out. They were wanting to move. They were wanting to do things, but they had a process for safety first. And he shares those stories, and man, it's deep. It's deep when you're sitting there listening to somebody on the other side that has to invest into the real world. Here's what's going to happen, but I'm going to measure this. I'm going to measure not just twice to cut once, but I'm going to measure 4 or 5 times to cut once.
Yeah, those men and women are forever changed in a way that I'm mercifully can only sniff that I can't know. One of the stories that grew out of the aftermath of this that really sticks with me is when some folks were in the theater as they were assessing, and this is as the story's breaking and all this, and they were assessing, now they've gotten all the victims that can be saved out. And all of a sudden, phones start ringing inside the theater.
That's right.
That had been dropped or left there. And just that eerie sense of some folks are calling, wondering, my God, is my loved one alive? Is my loved one safe? And for 12 of them, and one of them was a 6-year-old, that phone was never going to be answered ever again. There was never going to be that thing. And that's just, I mean, how do you get past that? I don't know how you get past it.
My TAC buddy, we could sit here and do a whole episode on this. We got to move forward, but I will say what you just said. There were 2 things that he shared with me. He said the first thing is they got in there and the fire alarms, they couldn't get them turned off. Fire department wouldn't go in until the scene was safe, so they couldn't get it, so there was this back and forth to get the alarms turned off. He said, but once the alarms turned off, the first thing he heard was cell phones ringing.
Crazy.
And he said that just keeps him up at night.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was all from the scroll.
That's okay. That's okay, because we're going to continue on the scroll, but now we're going to bring it closer to home. Colorado reported that 10,000 students have been pulled out of public school to homeschool. This is happening all over the country, and the crazy thing, in my anecdotal experience as the homeschool guy, so many of the parents are public school teachers. Makes you think. We're going to continue on the scroll because this is similarly, this is connected, I should say, to this conversation. And this is breaking. The USDGov has concluded that Jefferson County Schools, Colorado, has violated Title IX by allowing males to invade female restrooms and sports. The district has now been issued a resolution agreement instructing them to rescind policies allowing males to invade female spaces, and issue a public statement of their compliance, adopt policies based on biological sex, and notify all staff, students, and coaches of the district's renewed policy change. Failure to do so will risk imminent enforcement action. You know anything about this?
No, I've heard it on the radio. I've heard discussions about this. I mean, you've got some superstars out there like Lindsay Datko and others who are doing legitimate grassroots yeoman work. And listen, that term grassroots, it's been around for a long time. It doesn't mean the same thing anymore. Grassroots is somebody who out of their home shows up and gets things done outside the normal apparatus. What we have done, and I'm going to talk a little politically here too, is we've allowed people that show up to their precinct caucus and assembly to be called grassroots. Maybe that's in the area of grassroots, but most of those people, and they're necessary to the process, end up going home, never walking a neighborhood, never carrying a petition, never making a phone call. They're just keyboard warriors. And while there's value to that, it's the folks like Lindsay Datko and others that are out there that are making these things issues for the federal government to focus on, that you say, that's grassroots. That is someone from the neighborhood doing it outside of all the other apparatus, saying, how do we get this thing done? That's what matters. So I've heard about it on the radio. Mercifully, we haven't had much of that here, even though our school board flipped in this last election. Still waiting to see if they take a different turn. My kids, by the way, go to public school. They all went to charter school up through 5th grade and then went to the neighborhood school, Rocky Heights, and now I got 2 left at Rock Canyon. And I love our public school teachers. I love what they do. But I also have an increasing number of friends who are like, no, we're going to do homeschooling. Or some of these, I don't know what the right term is. Maybe you guys know this. It's like homeschooling, but it's within their community. So there's like multiple students, like neighborhood. It's not neighborhood school, but it's something like that. And I think more and more people are like, I'm just not going to risk what my kids are exposed to, and frankly, what they're not exposed to at school. I'm just going to take charge of that. I respect that, and I want Colorado to continue to be a leader in allowing and encouraging that. I just think that's freedom.
Yeah.
We have a group of gals, 5 of them. One is an attorney, an actuary. One's a biologist, scientist, something or
Is
other.
this the beginning of a joke? Like a
No, it's
lawyer, an actuary,
they all
and
walk into a bar. No, it's a legitimate thing, and I think they started with just their kids. So there's 12 kids total,
Okay.
but they've actually taken in about a dozen more
Wow.
from neighbors that are watching this. And yeah, so they've created their own little.
Yeah.
Here's what our environment is, and I can tell you right now, I can only speak to one thing. One of those kids was a problem child. He was a neighborhood problem child. His pendulum has gone 100.
Really?
Yeah, in 1 year.
That's tremendous.
Unbelievable.
That's
The
tremendous.
impact. And these are some very, very bright women, obviously, that are doing this,
yeah.
but they've collaborated to create something, and it's within their rights to do it, and I love it.
Not just rights. I mean, listen, and I've said this now for 20 years. If we can figure out that 0 to 12 age gap thing, if we can figure out how to best serve kids 0 to 12, and not just physical health, although that matters in places outside of Castle Rock and Douglas County more than it does here, but as a matter of education, principles, values, if we can figure that period of time out, becoming district attorney would be one of the most boring jobs in the world,
Boy,
because
howdy.
we would see crime drop off a cliff, but we don't figure it out. And we still allow that portion, and you've seen this with what you've done. If you don't figure those kids out after a certain age when they hit those teens, you're just going to see them again in adult court. It's just going to happen.
Show me your friends, show you your future.
Oh, man.
Man,
Tough.
Well, we're closing out the Daily Scroll here. This is another post that has to do with Colorado from Wall Street Apes here. Exposed. A new audit of the Denver, Colorado homelessness program reveals expenses spent in the program are not being tracked. $20 million is missing. The audit found that the mayor's homelessness initiative cost $178 million between 2023 and 2025. So the problem here, though, is that the mayor's office told the city council that it cost $158 million. So that's $20 million of a gap. $20 million missing.
dude, if I lose a $20 bill, I know. I will literally, if I open my wallet, because I typically I keep a little bit of cash in there in case I get robbed. I throw the cash on the ground, then I take the gun away from the bad guy and I hold him and I wait for the cops. That's why I keep the cash in there. Sometimes I keep cash just to buy coffee, but I know to the dollar how much money I have in there. If I'm missing a $20 bill, I will retrace 2 days of my life to figure out where that $20 bill went. And you're telling me you lose $20 million?
How about just shopping, right? Like, I will spend an extra 30 minutes trying to find airline ticket that's like $20 less.
Yeah.
But there's no limit to how much money you'd be willing to waste when it isn't yours. And that's what we see out of government all the time. Why care? It's not your money.
How bad do you think it is up on the Hill? How bad do you think it is here in Colorado? The waste, the fraud potentially. How bad do you think it truly is?
I mean, when you look at what happened in Minneapolis, like before, I'd be willing to chalk this up to carelessness, apathy, don't care. But when you look at the corruption out of Minnesota for what they did, and you start seeing some of the numbers here, you wonder, what would it be like if we had an attorney general who was willing to really roll up their sleeves and get into what's going on here? I got to suspect that it's so much bigger than we know right now. This is just what gets leaked out to the media and reported on.
Yeah.
What is the stuff that we don't know about? Man, I'd love to be in that position. Maybe Michael Allen can find a way to get elected here, and he'll dig in and find this out. But I got to believe it's epic. And you look at those Medicaid numbers about how much we're spending on whether it's illegals or throwing at this fraudulent autism reimbursement stuff, and you're talking jillions of dollars. By the way, I am a huge proponent of Medicaid. My son is permanently disabled. He relies on Medicaid for legitimate things related to him being able to survive. So to see it wasted on stuff like this, yeah, I think there's probably a lot more corruption than we know, and I think the waste is a lot broader than the people in charge will ever let us find out about.
How much of it do you think is a scheme, George? Like a legitimate, bona fide, built back-end scheme?
I think that's yet to be determined.
It's
I
crazy.
think that there are people that are out there that can see any system where the government's throwing money at a problem, COVID, homelessness, healthcare for illegal immigrants or whatever, and find a way to exploit that. I think the part you're talking about is scarier for us, and that is, who are the people out there that have the influence to set the system up to allow them to do that?
Here's the
I
thing.
don't
I'm
know,
okay.
but I got a pretty good imagination.
I'm okay with Medicaid to an extent. I'm okay with tax dollars going to take care of a kid like yours. But whenever we've got Barb sitting up here saying that there's like $80 million in just one program going to illegal immigrants getting health care, and I'm paying hundreds of dollars per month out of my pocket for my health insurance, my wife's health insurance, that's infuriating to me. That's not right. That's not how our tax dollars should be being used, because of what's being exposed in Minnesota, because of the fraud that's being exposed right now in California. We know that money's not actually going to illegal immigrants and their health care. Some of them maybe, but not all of them, not a chance. Absolutely, there's some kind of broader scheme. Money is going somewhere, and it's not going where they're telling us it's going. It's seeming that is clearly becoming the pattern every time this stuff is exposed.
I feel like politicians that are making excuses for this stuff need to go watch that movie State of Play. If you've never seen that with Russell Crowe and Ben Affleck, that is exceptional. It is exactly the question I'm asking. You got all these defense contractors getting billions of dollars, and they're going out and they start knocking on the doors to go meet and greet these guys and talk to them, and there's nobody in these offices, and there's no offices, and there's no nothing, and there's just one company after another, and it's all funneled back to, like I got to leave certain things. So I was actually going to be picked up in 94, 95 by Blackwater, and I went through the entire process right up to the end where they said you got to get jabbed 13 times to go over to a certain country. And I went, no. As a medic, I don't want that in my body.
You draw the line at 11.
I do
I'll
the
do
line.
11.
Yeah,
13 is
11,
outrageous.
Yeah. So I ended up not going. But you remember what happened with Blackwater?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I do question this stuff deeply because, to Jared's point, Barb came in, she sat down, and it was funny too because Barb, she's a smaller little gal sitting over there. But when she mentioned that, dude, I mean, like her shoulder, I mean, I thought she was going to come out of the chair.
She was getting fired up.
She was getting fired up, and she has a right to be fired up. Everybody should be fired up over this stuff. But I think it becomes so overwhelming and so big, we don't know how. It's kind of like, it's so big, I don't know what to do. And so I'm going to do nothing, but I think it's just somebody's job. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this guy nobody's ever heard of, who's now got, 1.6 million followers on one platform alone, named Nick Shirley, comes out and goes, I think I'm going to go look into daycare with Dave on Somali fraud. And I would have gone, I would have never thought of that. And then the next thing you know, it's like one thing after another. And so I'm kind of hoping we see this domino effect take place. That's what I'm hoping for. These independent journalists, because the mainstream media is dead. I keep saying it, and I'll keep saying it, and I'll keep saying it until they go, they're done. They're smoked. The Kyle Clarks of the world will be no more.
Well, and that may be a function of this merger with Fox 31. They're all moving the 9 News folks into the Fox 31 building soon. So I presume they're going to have to make space somehow. But, the bigger issue for Colorado is if we keep electing the same people in such a dominant fashion to control the legislature, the governor, the AG's office, like who's checking on each other? Like, what's the incentive for anyone to call someone out?
Sorry,
like
you went lime green for a minute.
Yeah,
I like the green screen because then I could be anywhere. You could put me in front of the Sphinx, the Eiffel Tower. I mean, there's value there.
Everything's falling apart. What cameras do we still have?
Hang on. We have an issue. Let's just go. We're just going with a back-end camera right now. We don't know what just happened, but
As we're talking about corruption, though, from those in power, do we think that any of this technology has been affected by those who are like, stop them, shut them up?
there is somebody out there on a deal right now backdooring us in the parking lot.
Right.
I have to put the disclaimer out there. Okay, listen, we did just finish JWI 5, which, man, it would be cool if you had to watch it. Then we could have maybe caught up and had a little segment here. But it was such a fun show on Saturday. But it's still a little bit, it's still getting pieced back together online. Those of you watching, a little bit of technical difficulties on some of the cameras this morning, but it's okay. We always got to have room to grow into better and better shows.
These guys don't
better
realize
episodes, right?
we work 24 hours a day, George. A lot of people just don't know that. Jared, I came in this morning. Jared was still here.
Wow.
Jared left last night. I was still here. Yeah, it's true. It's a true story. No, we did have a
At
big
least
event.
that's with the video show.
That's with the video shows. We did have a big event, and on the other side of what you can't see on the set is the event. It's all sitting over there right now. So George walked into the middle of it. It was
I got to come next time. How often do you guys do this thing?
We do it
once a quarter.
every quarter. We do the official JWI Jared Wayne Invitational. You heard it, internet. I gave the disclaimer as I'm supposed to. The disclosure. Whatever. Is that
Jared
what it's?
Wayne.
You're an attorney. Is that is this a disclaimer that I'm supposed to
Disclaimer,
put on?
sure. That's
Okay,
it right
disclaimer
there.
for our
That's
acronym there.
It's
the
our
Jared
event.
Wayne
Who cares what they
Invitational.
think?
But yeah, every quarter. So the next one's going to be June 27th, and it's going
Okay.
to be big. We're gonna push that one really big. We're gonna do a teams event in May. It'll either be the first or second Saturday in May for the next teams event. And it's all just fun. We're about to blow this entire thing up. It's going to be huge.
That's
We're going to launch a website, have all the characters on there with their kill-death ratios. We don't do win-loss ratios. We do kill-death ratios for the competitors, which is pretty
sweet.
cool. And we get coins if we win. And so we're going to
nice.
create an entire economy within the organization of what competitors can do with these coins and be able to
Yeah, like what? Give me an
initiate
example.
different-
What could you do with the coin?
like you trade in 1 coin, 2 coins, whatever, and then you're able to initiate the overtime weapons rule set at any point during your match. So typically the coin is flipped and they put a gun or knife in at 4 minutes. If you want to pay your 2 coins or whatever we decide with the currency, whatever it's going to be, then you can make it start at 1 minute. You can make it start at 2 minutes.
This almost has a video game like aspect to it too, with buying the upgraded
100%.
weapons. How many coins do you think it would take to get a pink-colored handgun? I mean, is that-
We're going to have to ask Scott Bottoms, that question. That's a very relevant question. And
By the way, we're going to track all.
this thing is totally
It's going all over the place. So we're going to track all of our money. Can you just put it on the back end one? We'll just
What?
go.
That is the back end one.
Oh, that's crazy.
And
It's jumped. Just leave it on that.
Now that one's working.
We'll just leave it
Okay,
on that.
That one's working.
That's fine. We're all visible.
Well,
We're going to track it. There'll be no fraud here.
Well, he asked the question. I mean, it's interesting that pink handguns led us to this, but I think this is a good thing to kind of talk about for a second. Is who do you got? Do you got somebody, or you don't got somebody? Have you endorsed anybody? What do you think?
I did. I endorsed Barb, and I did it for a very practical reason. Barb can step in tomorrow and be the governor of the state of Colorado. Like, nobody knows how government works in this race better than Barb Kirkmeyer. She's also been scrutinized and run through the ringer and tested over the course of, a couple decades of service at the local level, which I like to, because as you know, our legislature's big focus right now is how do we turn the rest of Colorado into the Denver that dominates government? So we are chiseling away at local control every single year. Barb, having been a county commissioner, she can appreciate, whoa, there's a role for counties to play in this. This is not what does Lorena Garcia think ought to happen in Douglas County. Nobody cares about your opinion down here. You want to live down here and run, do it. But otherwise, stay in Denver, ruin Denver. And so when I gave my endorsement, I think it's gone live. part of what I had put in my endorsement was, look, I think she's appropriately focused on public safety. I think she knows how government works. But honestly, bring back boring. No offense, Barb, but bring back boring.
Wow.
I enjoyed our conversation with her.
Barb.
She's
when
a
I say
sweet
boring,
lady.
and what I followed up with is bring back boring in that when's the last time you woke up and didn't have to confront the issue of what did my government do today? And with Barb at the helm, I don't think you're going to have to ask that question.
So
nearly
the
as
ultimate
much.
question is, do you think that Barb or Scott Bottoms is going to win in a gubernatorial shootout?
In the shootout. We're talking banging lead now, not the race.
Yeah. Listen, I want to be proven wrong, but it's probably Scott. And I say that only because his bluster seems legit and he has a pink handgun. And a dude who's that sure of himself that has a pink handgun, you know what I mean? Like,
He wasn't just sure of himself. He straight called it out.
That's what I'm saying, is this guy's either going to be revealed as an incredible fraud or he's as good as he thinks he is. And when you bring a pink handgun to a range, you are sending a message to everyone else there, like, because you're drawing that kind of attention. But I do want, and you and I talked about this just briefly before we went on this podcast, and that was, it would be kind of cool if Barb was sneaky sniper-like. You know what I mean? If she could show up.
If
and
she was a dead shot
I
and
know,
just
wouldn't that be
leveled the
incredible?
dudes, oh
Wouldn't
my
that be
gosh,
incredible?
it'd be epic. We've had such a good time interviewing everybody, and I'm before we go or doing it, I definitely want to talk judges, but I want to do the gubernatorial thing here for just a second. So right now. And this is me. I'm going to say this for me. I'm not going to say this for anybody else. I have talked to, I think, just about all of them.
Yeah.
At some point, you've been around this game for a long time. You see them all the time on a different level, and I get that. But on a personal level, the people that sat in that chair right there are the same people that I've met at the assemblies and talked offline with. They didn't sound a lick different than when they were in that chair. In other words, they didn't come out here and put on a show to walk over there and do something different, nor did they do something here and then go out there and put on a show. I saw the exact same people. And I'll stand on that and I'll testify to that any day of the week that ends in Y. I sat down with Steve Reams up in Weld County. He sat here. It's the same Steve. In fact, we talked about racing. I don't know if I can say this. I'm going to say it anyway. Steve said it to me, so I'm going to say it. We talked about racing cars out in the street. So he's a Hellcat guy, and I'm a Shelby guy. And we were talking about lining up out in the backcountry somewhere and who'd win the race. We just had a lot of fun, right? Just people being people. And I think sometimes we get stigmas with names and titles and all this. Where I'm going with it is all the people that were the way they were in that chair was out there, but we're not seeing it in the public eye. We're seeing a lot of infighting. We're seeing a lot of finger pointing, the kind of politics that Jared and I hate because we're talking about unification. And there's some people have good ideas over here and good ideas over here. I'm not on board or off board with any one candidate. I think they all bring something respective. But do you like the fighting right now? Is George Brauchler the district attorney? Does it make your job difficult knowing that the Republican GOP, specifically here in Douglas County, which those people eat themselves? I mean, I don't understand it. I've never understood it. Does it make your job hard, one? And two, what advice would you give to these people that are running, that are attacking each other right now, when we should all be unifying?
Well, I'm a little humble here about giving advice on a statewide race. I ran one in 2018 against a dude who had never set foot inside of a courtroom, and that guy's our attorney general running for governor right now. Yeah. So I'm not sure I'm the right guy to be giving advice, but from the standpoint of being a DA, once you become the DA, politics simply should not exist as part of the process. And that used to be that way. But because we're the only state in America that has term limits for district attorneys, what we have seen is two big things happen. More and more people getting elevated to DA who aren't career prosecutors, who aren't legit prosecutors. Mm-hmm. And because of that, they tend to be more partisan and political. So it has changed the nature of public safety and even the definition of justice. When you have prosecutors like Beth McCann, who is a person, I like Beth. She was the DA in Denver. She campaigned on, I would never, ever, never, never seek the death penalty. And I'm like, oh, I appreciate telling the public that, and they voted for her. But look, when you stand up and raise your right hand and swear to uphold and defend all the laws of the state of Colorado, there is no cross your fingers asterisk exception piece except for the ones that I'm just opposed to. Like, you just can't function like that. So politics seeps in that way. But in terms of becoming DA, this is where I encounter this right here. I told Darren If you don't have an opponent, this is Darren Weekly, the sheriff. If you don't have an opponent, it's not a real campaign, man. It's a coronation. It's like an anointing. I said, until your neighbors are getting mailers in their mailbox that call you a traitor, it's not a real campaign. And that's crazy because that's where we are today. We're calling people. Hey, how about this? At the assembly this past a Saturday or so ago, Tony Hartsook, retired Army infantry officer, combat vet, 26 years. There are folks putting flyers out saying this dude's a traitor for some position he took. Disagree with him. Call him soft. Call him weak on something. But traitor it's the kind of thing that makes your blood hurt inside you to hear that kind of language. The politics that we have today, governor's race included, is more toxic than I ever remember it being. And I wasn't alive in the 60s to see what it was like then. But, man, I'm a little worried. How do we pull back from this? When you say such horrible things about another person in your party, how do you then, after the primary, say, let's get all on the same team and row the same direction because our bigger opponent is those guys over there? How do you do that when you've said such horrible things about someone? So my advice is definitely point out positions where you differ. Definitely point out where you think, I am stronger on faith. I am stronger on the Second Amendment. But when you start levying that, you're bought and paid for, you're a traitor, you're corrupt, you can't get those words back, man. And you can't apologize your way out of those things because no one would believe you as an adult saying those things about someone else. So do I want steel to sharpen steel, iron to sharpen iron? Yes, I do. That's what makes us different than the Dems. But
we're not showing it.
You can't have cheap blows, man. You can't go cheap blows and go for the jugular right away. It's bad for us.
Man, I appreciate that. My sentiments exactly. You said it way better than me. You sound like an attorney.
A good attorney.
No one's ever checked. I've never been to law school. No.
Whoa.
No, I'm kidding.
You pulled that from the show Suits. You're gonna get a letter
right.
from.
I do not have a what's it called? Photographic memory.
A photographic memory.
Charlie Kirk was autodidact, self-taught, probably.
Yeah, I couldn't do that.
I mean, there's only one Charlie Kirk, right? And he'll sit back and say, look, man, I barely got out of high school. I think there's something to that. I am perfectly okay with your joke because I know a lot of smart guys that don't have degrees, and I know a lot of smart guys that have many degrees. I think it's the measure of a man is the integrity in their soul and their heart. I don't care what hangs over that. You can have something. You can have a whole wall of plaques of stuff. I've met some pretty corrupt people that have a plaque of wall, and then have the opposite. Many good men that have many over the top of them. And so, I'm very, very grateful that you're here to talk about this one issue that's super important to me. And I'm very selfish right now, but we have a war on kids. We have a war on kids like I've never seen. Boys can be girls, girls can be boys, men can have babies. The craziness that is coming out, but the attack on children between Epstein, so many of the things that have garnered national attention. Sat down with a lady the other day. She's like, I'm all about human trafficking. I want to get involved. And then you show her a couple pictures, and she's like, oh, my gosh, I don't want to be involved, right? I mean, it sounds good until you get into it, just like that video we showed.
Yeah.
I believe we have a war on children from the bench. I stand on it. I believe both from experience and from observation. I have one claim to fame only in my law enforcement career, and I'm a nobody. I was a mid-level guy. I mean, I ran things at a sheriff's office and patrol, investigation, SWAT, whatever. I'm a low-level guy. I'd never run for office. I've never been sheriff, but I've never lost a case. Not one. Not even a traffic case. I'm batting 1,000, baby. Like, that's the one thing I can take to my grave. I have taken rock solid. I've taken cases to DAs where they have high-fived me 5 minutes after looking at the case, come back over and grab me and said, dude, this right here. He goes, I wish people would make cases like this. Only to have them go in and have a judge go. And I'm talking high-end felonies. Suspended sentences, 60 days in jail, year in jail on something that should be a 25-year case. We're ruling, in my opinion, politics from the bench. We're making political decisions from the bench. Jared just pulled up a case the other day on two guys where one judge had rendered a decision on one of the suspects, and on the other suspect on the exact same case, a new judge had to take over. One guy got 30 years, the other guy got 3. And you go, like, how do you even make it up? What I'm getting at, though, is pedophilia.
Well,
what I'm
remember
getting
what
at
the
is
judge says. Remember what the judge said, though.
I am the law.
Whenever somebody asked him, why did you do this? He said, I am the law. That was his response. He said, I am the law.
Hopefully that wasn't in Colorado.
No, it wasn't.
No, it
My
wasn't.
goodness.
But it's stuff like that's dangerous. But what I'm driving at is pedophilia. I'm driving at we have an abuse of children in a way I've never seen before. And I believe it's just spiritual warfare. I think there's a lot of bad versus good, good versus evil stuff going on. As a kid who was sodomized for a couple of years by people, grown-ups, neighbors, people in the church, it's personal to me. Went into law enforcement. I made it my mission statement to go after these guys and bring them to justice. Why, oh why, right now are we seeing hand slaps given out? I mean, I'm talking people that have been charged, convicted. Now we're seeing, I'm reading, even locally here, 2 to 3 times before they get actual jail time.
Man, I wish I could tell you there was one single answer. There isn't one single answer, but the backdrop to the several reasons for this are all the same. And it's who has their hands on the levers of state government right now. Because if you look at our lawmaking process, it's dominated by one party, and it has been with only a limited exception for the last 15 years.
Since write-in ballots.
And so you see that with laws like Brandy Bradley and Regina English have run 3 years in a row. I went and testified last year. I was out of town this year and had my chief deputy go testify. And it stood for a very simple proposition. If you rape a child, even the one time, you should go to prison.
Yes.
There's nobody I've ever run into when I tell them you can get probation in Colorado for raping a child that hasn't reacted with, you've got to be kidding me. That doesn't make any sense. Yes, that's the law. But the party in power and that has been in power refuses to agree to that simple premise because they say things like, well, nobody should ever be in cages. Well, I'm sorry. There are some people that need to be in cages for their own good and for ours. You can call them cages, jails, prisons. I don't care. Some people need that because you can't hug or color book your way or therapy your way out of some of the stuff that they've done. And this is part of it. That's one piece. That's just one piece. The other piece with the judges are, our judicial selection process is not like other states. Texas, you can elect judges. Now, I'm not saying we should elect judges because I don't want to make judges hyper-partisan. But one thing that elections do is they educate. And whether it's 100% accurate information or not, you now know where this judge stands on positions because they debate. Hopefully they choose to debate. You know things about them because the news reports on it, because their opponent lets you know about it. And it gives them a different level of transparency and accountability than you get through our system, which we call the merit-based system. And it's a system that every judge that's currently on the bench would say this is the best system ever because they benefited from it. They succeeded in it. But right now we have judicial nominating commissions for each of our 23 judicial nominating commissions. There are 7 members that are on them. They're picked by the governor. There's a statute that says you can have no more than 4 members from one political party on there. Well, for us, and the way it used to be is you'd be like, oh, okay, so like in Denver, it'd be 4 Dems and 3 Republicans, or in Boulder, 4 Dems and 3 Republicans, or Douglas County, it'll be 4. But over the years, and this is pretty recent, what they figured out is, well, we don't have to appoint any Republicans. As long as we don't appoint more than 4 Democrats, we can appoint a bunch of left-leaning U's. And so you see in the entire metro area, out of 5 judicial districts, 35 nominating commissioners, there are 2 Republicans. Out of 35, statewide, 161 possible nominating commissioners, 12% are Republicans. That doesn't make sense, but that's who decides these are the names we're giving to the governor. The governor, also a Democrat, then gets really unfettered discretion within those 3 to pick. And I'm not saying this process hasn't and can't yield good judges. Our chief judge here in this jurisdiction is phenomenal. I never want to see him retire. He's great. But are we batting 1,000 with all of our judges? And if any judges are watching this, I'm not talking about you, whoever's watching this. But do we have judges that we could be better with? 100%. And so I asked this question. I went to a bar association meeting where it was me and the public defender and the chief judge asked us questions. And one of the questions he asked, and I asked him to ask this, was who should set criminal justice policy in the jurisdiction? Should it be the DA, the sheriff, the judge? Who? And I said this. I campaigned on the idea that something simple, not even pedophilia, but this falls into that. You steal from us, you come down here and steal from us, you ought to expect to go to jail every single time, and the stove is always hot. right? Like you're careful around the stove that's on because you don't want to get burned. That's how I want people to look at coming down here and victimizing us. I can say that all day long. Darren can go and arrest every single one of these people, and they do. But if we get in front of a judge, one judge who went through that process and just decides, I just don't think it warrants jail, the entire approach is unraveled. And so to your point, you put together the best case possible. The DA says, we're going to go crush this person. They deserve prison. One judge in a system where there is no mandatory time can say, I disagree. And they seem to be disconnected, in my opinion, from the rest of the community. They live there, that's for sure, but disconnected from, this is what people voted for. I'm not looking for you to be a rubber stamp, but on most of the cases, it should be, what did people want to see happen on these low-level cases, and they just don't do it.
So don't switch it, Jared. Just I'd say leave it.
Don't worry, yours is working good. It's
Mine,
hardwired.
Very quick story. Don't remember so I was on your podcast.
Yeah, that's
Loved
right.
it. Absolutely loved
That's
it.
right, yeah.
It was very
Same.
enjoyable.
Same.
I don't remember if I brought this up, but I'll do it real quick. So barking dog complaint, I get charged. I go to Muni Court here in Castle Rock. They do traffic before they do the other cases. So there's 27, I believe it was, if I recall correctly, moving violation cases. 27. 27, walk up, the judge says, I can't tell you to do this, but, in this verbiage, if you plead to a defective vehicle, I will give you a non-moving violation fee. We'll stamp you and you'll go home, won't impact you. 27 in a row pled to a defective vehicle. Nothing wrong with the car, choice on their part.
Yeah.
So I go back to Darren sitting in that chair when he was here. Darren, what's the number one complaint you have in Douglas County? Traffic. Oh, okay. I'm sure Jack Hawley probably told me the same thing in Castle Rock, right? So I'm sitting here watching this as a retired peace officer going, defective vehicle? Really? Defective vehicle? Really? Defective? 27 times in a row. My case gets called, barking dog. I walk up, stand up there. The judge leans, so he's been leaning back the whole time. Body language changes, leans up, gets his arms up on the bench. He goes, just so you know, this is how it starts. This is on public record.
Yeah.
Before this goes anywhere, I had a neighbor of mine that had several dogs, and they would bark continuously, and it drives me crazy. And he goes, and I just want you to know that the fines go from, I believe he said, $90 to $1,000. And I'm already leaning on the high end of the scale. So your story better be good. And I can tell you, I wanted to crawl over that bench at that moment in time. I think people are not aware of this kind of stuff. The reason I share that story, because it's very small. It's a barking dog thing. And by the way, this was a neighbor taunting all the dogs. She didn't like dogs, so she'd go around taunt and film, and then send the film over to Castle Rock, and we got charged. Yeah, it was great. So we had a Karen on steroids back in the day, and then I had a judge who pled 27 people out to something. There was nothing wrong with her car. Sure. After all the cops spent hundreds of man hours patrolling the streets to write the tickets, and some of these tickets were 60 and 70 in school zones, by the way. Defective vehicle, unbelievable. Anyway, I say that to say this. If at a low level, we're doing that from the bench. You said something earlier that really hit me. I mean, I didn't tear up. I almost did. We don't want to put people in cages on these pedophilia charges. Well, to all the judges that are watching at whatever camera I'm looking into right now, there's a cage called your brain. And for the victims, they're living in that cage for the rest of their life.
Right.
For the rest of their life. And it may not be made of steel with 4-inch separation and bars, but it's inescapable. And if you're the parent of that child, I've watched suicides, emotional and mental trauma that they carry with them for life, bad choices later, because they don't all recover, and they become the victim, then they become the perp later. I was very, very fortunate. I was very, very fortunate for somebody who was abused for a long period of time, because I used my pain to turn it into a purpose. But a lot of people don't. Mm-hmm. And the system has metastasized the problem now to where you can go hurt a child. You're not going to get jail time, maybe not even the second time, because we have people deciding, both from the bench and at the state level, here's the thing we should be doing. Can you tell me why? Give me the why behind I don't want to protect a child. Because when I started this, I said, I think we have a war on kids. You're the district attorney. You get a case, it's set down in front of you. This child has been raped and sodomized. How and I'm not saying you would do this, this is a generic question. How would you not look at that and say, obviously, I'm going to review all the evidence. I'm going to take everything into account, just like you did with the death trial. So good on you, because we're going to respect all of the law. But how do you, as a human being, in your role, not look at that and go, at a bare minimum, we should be protecting children? Like, why are we waging war on kids by allowing people to walk when we know there should be an accountability?
I think, look, these cases are some of the most challenging cases that we get, these crimes against children and the sex crimes. And I'll give you an example of one that's in the news today that we prosecuted. And it involves a teacher from STEM who created a relationship with a teenage student and, I mean, couldn't stop the relationship. Even when law enforcement got involved, would not stop pursuing this kid. Sex assault on a child is a probation-eligible charge. If you do it from a position of trust, and a teacher or a pastor or someone, a scout leader, a coach would be a position of trust, also probation eligible. The only thing that makes it mandatory prison is something called pattern.
Yeah.
Pattern means you had to have done it more than once. So we get this case, and we've had 5 of these. We've had 5 public school teachers since our jurisdiction was born in January 25 that we have prosecuted, and we're on the 4th sentencing this Friday. All of them have become convicted felons, registered sex offenders, and have all been incarcerated for some period of time. But this one is interesting, and it speaks to almost every point you brought up about your experience in this thing. So we charged this woman, 45-year-old woman, married with kids. Like, what in the hell is going on? Is that one that has to be bleeped out if I say hell? Okay. Should I say H-E-W?
No, I'm pretty sure hell is applicable there.
What is going on? And so we have this sex assault on a child position of trust thing. We don't ever get the evidence enough to lock down pattern, which means, okay, we go to trial on this thing. We think we've got good evidence. We never got the victim 100% on board, and you can imagine the dynamics that lead to that. You can imagine over the course of a career of 31 years of doing this, there have been cases where we have solid cases against people who have victimized these kids. And parents will come to us and say exactly what you said. Our daughter is struggling with suicidal ideation. If you put her on the stand, we've had mental health professionals back. If you put her on the stand and you subject her to this in front of the public, and I got to tell you, man, these defense attorneys, they are dang good at what they do. They don't show any mercy to these victims when they cross them. You do that, we're afraid you're going to break her in a way that we can't fix.
Yeah.
So now what? Now I have this great case that Mike has put together where you're like, I want to go get my pound of flesh. And then you have the family members, the parents of the victim come and say, please, please find a way to get some justice out of this. So this teacher who had she been convicted at trial, and I feel very good about my team and the ability to convict her, would have been sentenced somewhere between probation and a sentence to prison that could have been up to indeterminate, potentially life, right? So instead, when you get these conversations about how do we squeeze justice out of a system where we're not even built to get justice for this, we can't fix what happened, right? Then you start having conversations about what can we get that represents the right kind of punishment, message, and justice, but at the same time spares this teenager from having to go through this. And so what we came up with was 14 years in the Department of Corrections. You register as a sex offender for even 10 years beyond your sentence. So we're looking at a couple decades of this, putting this person into their late 60s, maybe 70. And you send the message to the community, hey, if you're in a position of trust, expect to lose your freedom if you cross that line. But at the same time, preserving an opportunity for this teenager to not be defined in public by this thing that is not their fault. And so to do that, we don't have a charge that fits that outcome.
Right.
So instead, we had to come up with a charge that was a cybercrime sex-related charge to get us to that outcome. So when you say defective vehicle and it doesn't fit, I'm like, I get it. It's a legal fiction. For sure it is.
It is.
But because we only have a handful of tools in this toolbox and we're told build something out of it, sometimes we got to use a Phillips head to do a standard head job or vice versa, and it just doesn't make sense, but it's the only thing we have. So in that case, and you'll be reading about this more in the media, I'm sure, we sentenced her. On Friday, We have a sentencing involving a teacher from Douglas County High School that is facing a sentence where it was similar. I thought we had good but not great evidence. Don't know what a jury's going to do with this. And they came forward and said, we'll plead guilty. We'll become a registered sex offender. We will take offense-specific, intensive probation, and we will even expose ourselves to incarceration, but not prison, jail. Is that enough? And then you go talk to the victim and the victim's family, and in this particular case, they're like, I just want to hear that this guy stands up in court and says, I did it. That's what I need. And so Friday, we're going to go to a sentencing on a case where we're going to argue for hell for, there it is again, for incarceration. But could a judge let that dude walk out of the room? They could. But how is that the right message for the community? These are just such complicated cases. If we had you go to prison if you sex assault a kid, if you had that, there's a different dynamic that we have here.
Here's the reason I ask, and now I'm going to leave it alone because I swore to a bunch of people, and I want to be very clear. One of them actually texted me when I was sitting here, who is a victim of a pretty bad crime, and we had her on the show. Name's Michelle Chandler, and she became a lot of people's hero pretty quick when they saw that video. This is a guy that was in the dressing room and took a camera up underneath the thing and was filming her change. She looks down, sees the camera, is half dressed, goes out, confronts him.
Where was this?
Lakewood.
Oh, buddy.
So
I grew up in Lakewood.
So she ends up grabbing this guy, tackling him, putting him into a headlock, holding him until security and employees get there. Anyway, the story made national news, national attention because it was she filmed it. Not her personally. Somebody was filming this whole thing unfolding. So she's sitting here texting me while you're here. She's like, so I've not read it, but I know the question is what do we do? What do we do for the victims? Because we have people out here that have been victimized. But you brought up something very important, and I do want to clarify. I'm very grateful for our district attorney saying something that I didn't say, but did experience multiple times over. You have to have a willing victim. And a victim gets the crap kicked out of them by defense attorneys. And I really do say shame on defense attorneys because if we went to holding the people to account the way that we go to defending them when we know they're guilty, and I've got a whole different thing offline. I'd love to talk to you about that. But I am impassioned on this. I do have a question that I want to ask that I know you can't answer, but I just want your opinion on it. So there was a story in the news just a couple days ago of a teacher, 38 years old, having sexual intimacy affair with a middle schooler. And it had been ongoing for 3 months.
Where was that?
I don't know. We could Google it and look it up. But this is one of these things where I go, and it's a no answer question. But do you just think that the depravity in society, we've just gotten to a point where our morals are so gone, just so gone, that it's anything goes? Because when I read that story, if that had been 100 years ago, they'd have killed that woman in the street. They would have gone and lynched her, right? What makes a 35, 38-year-old woman go have sex with a middle schooler? I can't understand anymore, George. I want to understand, but I don't get it.
I don't know. And we are a different society than we were 50 years ago, for sure. Some good, some bad. But I don't know the answer to that.
I just don't know the war.
Someone asked me, is it happening more often, do you think, because we have 5 cases? And I said, I don't know if it's happening more often or if we're just getting better at 2 things. One, creating an environment where people feel comfortable coming forward to say it happened, because a lot of this stuff probably went on before when we were in school and no one ever said a thing about it.
And there was no social media to see it daily.
No social media. And 2, are we getting better and appropriately focused on when it comes to us, we treat it seriously and let's go get them, as opposed to if this same thing you described happened back when, I was in middle school or high school, would it be like, oh, Van Halen's 1984 Hot for Teacher? Would it be like, oh, that you shouldn't do that. That's a bad thing. Maybe we move you to another. That's not true anymore. Now we coming to get you. Don't care if you're a boy or a girl, man or a woman. We're coming for you because you can't corrupt a kid that way. You can't do that.
It's a great drum opening, by the way.
What's that?
Hot for Teacher?
Oh, it is. It is. You're absolutely right.
That goes on for a while. Look, I really appreciate you answering those questions. I know that's tough, and my heart breaks, but I had a half dozen people ask me off air, ask about the sentencing. And these are people that have been victimized or have family members that have been victimized. And there's always a story within a story. I mean, it's not a blanket answer, and I understand that. But there's a central theme, and you actually said it. When you talk about raping a child and getting probation, people look at you and go, what are you talking about?
Doesn't make sense.
I haven't met anybody that doesn't go, what are you talking about?
Doesn't make any sense.
And yet we're somehow supporting House bills and bringing these things in and Senate bills to where, you said it best, even how judges are picked and how they're appropriated, where you got 12% of the Republican Party over here and 88% over here. Well, of course it's going to be unbalanced, but I just personally can't get past the fact that we could just violate kids with relative ease, with hardly any accountability, and it just seems to be the new norm. That's what I'm seeing. I'm not saying here in Douglas County. I'm just saying nationwide we're watching this happen.
It could happen here. We'll see on Friday. I mean, it could happen here. I agree with you. The answer is, though, we have to change government. You can change out the prosecutor and have them take a far more permissive approach, and we've seen that in other jurisdictions. Sure. But at the end of the day, we've got to change government because the government is who's failing us in this. When the focus is on, we want to pass laws that protect kids being able to anonymously and without the knowledge or input of their parents cut off their parts, as opposed to saying, how do we protect kids who are being victimized by creating an environment where when you touch the stove, you get burned and burned badly. We have a government that is completely disconnected. Here's the thing. There's a ballot measure that's waiting to be funded to be petitioned onto the ballot that would create mandatory prison for sex offenders. That thing polls at 80-20. Now, who are the 20? Who are those 20? But 80-20 is unheard of. The fact that we could put that on the ballot and it passes in a breeze, and yet the legislature won't let it get out of committee, you would think they would look around and go, man, Colorado voters don't think like us on these. They don't care. They don't need to care. We have to change out government. That's the only answer.
I had a student that came in. He's a special needs kid, and I was sponsoring, giving some private lessons for him after he made the news getting abused by his teacher's aide. And his teacher's aide, she just pled guilty. This was in Littleton. She got 4 years, but she was on video beating this kid. And this kid, very autistic, comes in for jiu-jitsu. He's not even verbal, but he comes in, does jiu-jitsu, and the words that he actually can't say now is jiu-jitsu. He'll say jiu-jitsu. And, just being there for him and his mom in that time was a good opportunity to be a light, on a world that's full of darkness. But to me, like, having video of a teacher and then having somebody plead guilty, like, you beat a autistic child. 4 years is not enough.
It's a rough video too.
4 years
it's hard to watch.
4 years is whenever you don't have enough, whatever you want to call it, common sense, decency, whenever you are the kind of a human that wants to put hands on a child like that, that's just disgusting. How can we not have more severe sentencing for people like that?
Well, look, I hate to burst your bubble, and forgive me. I have to go quickly here to go to physical therapy on this arm. But
just
let me say,
just squeeze the ball.
Our sentencing scheme is so broken that 4 years, because it's probably not a crime of violence they pled to, that person's going to be parole eligible at 1/3 of that time, because we automatically give earned time and good time, whether you earn it or you're good. We give it to you. And so because that will ratchet it back down below about 18 months, it means that if she's sent to the Denver Regional Diagnostic Center, where all prisoners go to be categorized and sent out, and they decide what risk they are, what needs they have, whether it's substance abuse, mental health, they're going to turn her around at there and put her right back in the community and community corrections at most. That's the most that will happen to her. So 4 years is fake. Our sentencing scheme here is so opaque and broken, and deliberately so. Quick story. If you're in prison serving a sentence, you're granted earned time and good time just for drawing breath. You don't have to have done anything. In fact, your sentence gets cut in half on a non-crime of violence the minute you walk out of the courtroom door. That's insane. If you are in prison and you sexually assault another person in prison, you cannot lose more than 45 days of that time. If you try to murder someone in prison, doesn't matter who, you can't lose more than 60 days of that time. Can't lose more than 60. And if you actually murder another person in prison, you can't lose more than 90 days time. That ain't me saying it. That's not myth. Go to the Department of Corrections website and look at their discipline grid in their own rules. They will not take more than 90 days from someone who kills another person. I mean, color me old school here, but it seems to me if you rape, try to kill, or kill someone in prison, you ought to lose all the time, right? Like,
Yeah,
how do you not lose all the time?
Man, that's just because they want to be able to always take care of their Epstein problems, and they want to make sure that the prisoners know they're going to be treated fairly if they take out the government's trash.
It's just that we've put so little value on life.
Yep.
We really have. Despite where you stand in so many things, it's just so easy, from killing babies to hurting people and whatnot. It's sad. So I know you got to go. I ran us long on the questions.
It's the ball thing. We got to.
Last question is this, and we got to come up for air on this. Okay, what gun do you shoot? It's not pink, is it?
No, I have two handguns. I have a subcompact Glock 40. It's a 27. I mean, 23. I think it's a 23. I have when they came out with the single stack 380 Glock, I thought how cool, I can just put that in my back pocket. And honestly, I rarely go to the movies with my kids without carrying, just because, and people have asked me, you think you're going to be a hero or something? I'm like, no, but if something happens, I'd like to have more than hope, as an option. But so I go to buy the 380 from Neves or someplace like that, and because they have a law enforcement discount. And I remember going up there to buy that, and the dude's like finishing up the paperwork, background stuff, and all that. And he goes, "Is this for your wife or a girlfriend or something like that?" I'm like, "No, it's for me." And he's like, "Oh," and it was almost embarrassed. He was like, "Oh,
yeah."
And then there's a guy next to me. And I recognize this guy. He's a Lakewood cop. And I can't remember who it is now. And he goes, "Hey, I'm getting one of those too." And I go, "See?
Yeah.
He's getting one." And he goes, "It's for my wife." And I'm like, "Oh, come on." The only thing I was missing is that it wasn't pink. So those are the two that I have.
All right. So let's give you a man card back real quick, because you got to go. And we always pray ourselves out. You served. Take 30 seconds. Tell us where you served.
So I am going to be mandatorily retired at the end of this May after 31 years. I have not had an adult year in my life that I haven't put on the uniform, either through ROTC or through military stuff. I was mobilized twice after September 11th. My last time was in 2010, and I was supposed to be the chief of military justice for Fort Carson.
Mm-hmm.
They had deployed the headquarter element to a place called Tikrit, which was the headquarters for U.S. Division North in Iraq. And in fact, it's also like Saddam's hometown was right outside Tikrit. Cobb Spiker, Contingency Operating Base Spiker. Great story behind that. And, 3 or 4 or 5 months into my time down there, the staff judge advocate, the SJA, came in. Great name, by the way, Colonel Haight, H-A-I-G-H-T. I'm figuring when this dude was a major, he was Major Haight.
Major Haight.
Can you imagine having a prosecutor in the military named Major Haight? It's like a comic book. And so Colonel Haight came in and saw me, and he goes, "Hey, I got to send you to Iraq. I'm pulling back the other chief of justice. I need you to go forward and be the chief of justice." And I'm like, "Okay." So I went, did those remaining months.
What year was that, by the way?
That would have been 2011.
2011. Okay.
2011, out in Tikrit in Cobb Spiker. In fact, we were there. We should have been there a little bit longer. That was that period of time, right about August, September, when President Obama came out and said, "I want every green suiter out of the desert by December 31st.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to kick off 2012 with anyone in Iraq."
Yeah. Wink, wink.
So they rolled up north to south. So we started main bodying people out of there in phases, and I ended up redeploying. I was in the air between Leipzig and Fort Bragg on my birthday back in October of 2011. And then when they cut me loose 2 weeks later to go back to refrad, release from active duty, the next day I decided to run for district attorney. But that was the time I was over there.
So I followed your story closely back in the day. I remember your original run. That's why I wanted you to tell the story, because a lot of people don't, if they follow you, they know. But if they don't, you had a pretty cool service career. I think you do. I mean, for what you did, I think you did.
I got friends that, and I feel guilty about this, I got friends that have deployed to both theaters.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought my country was going to ask me to do one more thing. Like, I thought my country was going to ask me to go to Afghanistan. And as you know, man, you don't sign up to be part of the military crossing your fingers thinking, with luck, I'll never do anything. You sign up thinking, if bad things happen, and I pray to God they don't, call me. Please send me. And that just didn't happen. And I got buddies that deployed multiple times. Our judge in Elbert County, this guy, he's deployed to Afghanistan twice, with the special ops guys as a JAG. And I'm like, thanks, dude. I mean, like, I get it. So, I've been very blessed. I could have been asked to do a lot more. I wanted to be asked to do a lot more. But as you work your way up the rank, it's hard to deploy a Colonel JAG. I am the same rank as a brigade commander. It's hard to inject me into the theater in some position other as a staff flunky somewhere, at the division level. I get it. I'm going to miss it. I wish I could keep serving. That's all.
Well, I will say this. So I'm reaching out to my baby girl. So she's driving the Tripoli.
Yeah.
She's in Iran. She's in Mosul.
Yeah.
She's in the Straits.
Yeah.
She's doing, or not Mosul, Hormuz. Right now.
Yeah.
And, so prayers to all of those guys over there right now, because
agreed.
there's a lot going on. So
Agreed.
we're going to close out here. Jared, you got us today, or do I have us?
George, you don't want to close us out?
I'm happy to.
Man, I should have asked. I apologize. We keep count.
Oh, so who does it?
Well, it's odd
Listen,
even,
I don't
odd even,
I
odd
don't want
even.
to screw it up.
No, you're not going to screw anything.
We ask all
we
the
always
guests.
ask.
I think he was just making an assumption.
Yeah, well, no, I wasn't making an assumption, but you would just do odd even, so I was keeping score. But yeah, we always ask. So
first, I didn't even know you served until the end of this conversation. So thank you for your service.
Yeah,
That's awesome,
thanks.
sir.
Thanks
And
for
then
paying
just
taxes,
wanted
man. No taxes, no army. Okay.
Oh man.
that's a whole nother conversation.
All right. Yeah. If you don't mind to close us out with a prayer, that'd be awesome, sir.
I will. Heavenly Father, thanks for the opportunity to sit around and talk about things that we carry around in our head and our chest, but we probably don't talk to each other about enough. Thanks for putting me in a position to try to do good and help me to do a better job doing good. Thanks for these two men here and the things that they do to try to create community. And for anyone else out there listening, it's okay to question your faith. That's okay. But don't give up on it. Keep questioning, keep pursuing, and come back to it over and over again. And you won't always hear the answer you want. Believe me, I've lived that. But God, keep giving us the willingness and ability to come back and seek your guidance. Amen.
Amen. Well stated.
I can't